ceremonial, dietary, the legalistic, I shouldn't say legalistic, the Old Testament law. Should we put it on them? The answer, no. And then you remember at the last part, what did they want them to remember? Just remember this. Okay, that was the one thing. Keep yourself from blood, strangled animals, and idols. But then they said, and remember sexual immorality, and remember the poor. And then he says, which we were eager to do. You remember, Paul's always collecting money to send to Jerusalem. Well, why? It's practical. The widows, and I would imagine this, that when people became followers of Jesus, their families were like, you're out of here. We want nothing more to do with you. Just like it happens in Muslim countries today, which one of our friends we know about Joe, right? Not that he's impoverished, but his dad was like, look, you're not my son anymore. Okay, that's the deal in the early Jerusalem church. You become a follower of this Jesus, you're out. Okay, the church needs to support these people. How are they going to do it? That's why Paul was bringing in offerings from other churches to help. Okay, um, we got to move. Oh wow, we're out of time. All right, let's finish this and we'll be done. You will be betrayed even by parents, brothers, relatives, friends, and they will put some of you to death. All men will hate you because of me. Not a hair on your head will perish. Um, by standing firm, you will gain life. So obviously, he's not saying you're not going to die. He's saying, look, I'm going to take care of you. By losing your life, you'll gain it. What did Paul say? To die is gain. To live is Christ. To die is gain. Um, here it is. Let those who are in By standing firm, you will gain life. When you see Jerusalem being surrounded by armies, you will know that its desolation is near. Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let those in the city get out, and let those in the country not go near the city. For the time of punishment in fulfillment of all that has been written. How dreadful it will be in those days for pregnant women and nursing mothers. There will be great distress in the land and wrath against this people. Okay? If you know what happened there, and I learned this obviously, walled cities were supposed to be places where you'd hide. You guys all saw Lord of the Rings, right? And you remember, I think in the second one, they all went to that walled city and they sort of posted up there and we're going to fight back. That's the idea. They built huge, thick walls back in the day around cities, and then they had them city gates. Remember Samson picked up that one city gate and just took it with him? That just to show his strength. Okay, Jesus is saying, look, don't do that. Get out of the city, run to the hills, run to the mountains, and it's going to be bad for people who can't run. Pregnant women, little kids, because Jerusalem is going to be surrounded, and we know historically this is what happened. It got surrounded and just sacked by Rome, crushed, burned, destroyed. Okay? There will be great distress in the land, great wrath against this people. This is all for a reason. I'm not just going through this randomly. We're going to get to a point and you're going to be like, okay, it's coming. They will fall by the sword and will be taken as prisoners to all the nations. Here it is. Jerusalem will be trampled on by the Gentiles. Here it is. Until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. It is prophetic by Jesus in verse 24 that Jerusalem, and I'll take it further, Jewish people will be trampled on until what? The full number of the Gentiles come in. And so all Israel will be saved. There is a temporary hardening on Israel, and when the full number of the Gentiles come in, or in this verse, when the time of the Gentiles are fulfilled, they're coming back. Okay? And it is, I think, interesting that they're back in their city. I think that is interesting. I'm not one of those guys who thinks that, the generation that sees this happen will not perish till they see the end come. I'm not that guy. Um, I don't necessarily say that for sure we're going to be gone within the next 5 years because a generation is only. And you guys have heard those arguments. Um, because a generation back then, I've heard, was only 40 years, and so it's already past that time. If you're going to use that as your argument for it's coming, we're in this. However, it is very interesting that they're back and that they've been there and that they're strong. Okay, they could wipe Iran out in a second. That's not a problem. But I think to keep peace with the other nations, they're not doing it. However, they have power and they have backing, hopefully continued by us. Hopefully, we'll continue to back them. But they have enough military power and might. This little tiny place surrounded by enemies can just wipe out countries. They can do it, and they don't. They fly back and forth. If you know anything about Israel, they fly back and forth on their own land and they patrol it. They sort of keep their little area safe. They're not raiding other countries, but it's interesting that all the other countries want to raid them. Okay. I did really want to get to the hardening, and I really did want to get to a couple verses about the full number of the Gentiles coming in. But we're out of time, and so we'll pick up there next week. I do want to look at some places where it's specified, okay, there is a certain amount of people. There is a full number of the Gentiles. There is a time of the Gentiles to be fulfilled, and then all Israel will be saved. So we'll pick up there next week. We won't have to do a ton of background, and hopefully we'll be able to move past verse 25. So